Hey guys, welcome back to Econ Time with SK. So grab your notebooks, your favorite cup of coffee, and let's get started. So in this lecture series, we look at the final application where we're looking at double shift. So let's see what's happening here. We're being told that Mum and Fresh, both of them sell bottled water. Okay. Now Partex Group, which owns Mum, so basically we're being told price of Mum goes up. At the same time, so there's some subsidy to Meghna Group, which produces fresh mineral water. All right. So at the same time, there's this government subsidy for fresh. Now we see that the price of fresh water bottle, it actually remains unchanged. That's interesting. The two things you're going to notice here. First, you're being told do any analysis you're going to do it on fresh. Okay, not Mum. And we're being told that the price actually remains unchanged after all of these things happen. So we have to figure out why is this the case. Let us first draw the market equilibrium for fresh mineral water. So the first thing we want to do is identify the original equilibrium. Okay, so equilibrium is going to be happening at P1, Q1. Okay, so this is your E1. So এখন আমাদের কি বলা হচ্ছে দেখো দুটো জিনিস হয়েছে কিন্তু let's analyze part by part. Easier part is of course government subsidy for fresh. Okay, so government subsidy is what? এটা কিসের shift factor? This is a supply shift factor. All right, and subsidy হলে কি হয়? Subsidy means subsidy মানেই, so if subsidy is given it means তোমার cost of production টা কমে যায়, which means profitability বেড়ে যায়, which means production টা বেড়ে যাবে, right? So let's quickly draw that. So production টা actually বেড়ে যাবে, তোমার supply curve টা কিন্তু এরকম করে shift করবে. Okay, this is because of the subsidy. At the same time, what else is happening? So let's analyze. Price of Mum is going up. So let me write that down. The price of Mum goes up. মামের যে দাম যদি বেড়ে যায়, মানুষ কি মাম বেশি কিনবে নাকি কম কিনবে? Of course we know that quantity demanded for Mum is going to go down. এখন if it goes down তাহলে ওরা bottled water, mineral water কোত্থেকে কিনবে? Well, remember fresh is an alternative, right? So the demand for fresh is actually going to go up. Why? Because people are switching, because they are substituting. Okay, so people are switching away from Mum water bottle towards fresh, and that is why people are buying more fresh at each and every price, which means আসলে তোমার demand curve টা it will shift out. Okay, no doubt about it. কিন্তু এখানে বলা হচ্ছে যে even if all of these things happened, the price remains unchanged, right? So why is this the case? So let's see. For me to keep my price unchanged, আমি জানি যে demand curve outward shift করবে, right? So if I were to draw the demand curve here, let's say আমি যদি এরকম করে draw করি, demand curve I know is going to be shifting out. তখন কিন্তু D2S2 তোমার নতুন প্রাইসটা এখানে হবে. So actually price is increasing, but we've just been told the price কিন্তু আসলে বাড়ছে না. তাহলে how do I draw the demand curve in such a way so that my price doesn't increase? Okay, actually, so let's backtrack. For the price to remain the same, demand curve should be shifting here. Okay, so if the demand curve changes like this, এখন দেখো that your price remains unchanged here. And so the quantity is going to be here. So here we've drawn it in such a way so that price remains unchanged at P1. So let's call this E2. All right, so this is how much the demand is going to shift. So essentially what we're seeing is that when the shift in demand is equal to the shift in supply, then the price basically, what is supply doing? Supply is pulling the price down, demand is pulling the price up, right? So if they move equal amount, basically the downward pressure on prices cancels the upward pressure on prices, and so the price remains the same at P1. Okay, so how are you going to write this out? Double shifter জন্য সবসময় remember, I'm going to place more emphasis on whether you can identify what is causing the shift and then describing them. So I've written it out for you here, right? So let's see how the analysis is going to be. So initially we saw that the market was at equilibrium at E1. তারপরে প্রথম শিফটে কি হলো যে since mom and fresh are substitutes, when the price of mom, so প্রথমে remember you have to tell me these are substitute goods, এই রিলেশনশিপটা বলে নিতে হবে. So when the price of mom increases, consumers, what do? They are going to switch to buying more fresh bottles. তাহলে কি হবে? বেশি ফ্রেশ কেনা হবে at each and every price, তাই demand, ফ্রেশের ডিমান্ডটা বেড়ে যাবে, right? That is just a shorter way of saying this very long sentence. A shorter, more technical way of saying it is that demand is going to increase for fresh. And that is why what's going to happen to the curve? Demand curve for fresh is going to shift outwards from D1 to D2. So this is essentially what I'm describing as 1A in my writing. At the same time, bola hocche je due to a government subsidy to Meghna Group, right? Remember, what does the subsidy do? We discussed it. Cost of production of fresh bottles is actually going to fall. So cost of production যখন fall করে, I've told you that it makes it more profitable. So of course, then Meghna Group is going to want to produce more fresh bottles at each and every price. তার মানে সংক্ষেপে বলা যায়, using the technical word supply, যে supply for fresh bottles এটা বেড়ে যাবে, it's going to increase. সেই কারণে what will happen to the curve? Supply curve is going to shift rightwards from S1 to S2. So এটাকে আমি 1B ডাকছি in my explanation, right? So দুটো shifty is just they're both happening at the same time. So anytime we're talking about shifts, this is your shift in demand curve, and this is our shift in supply curve. So দুটো shiftকে আমি step 1 বলছি. So step 2, essentially what is it? দেখো, price is actually remaining unchanged, right? So this is a bit challenging. Basically what is happening is that since the change in demand, okay, I'm going to show you something here. দেখো, এটা তোমার supply curve, এটা তোমার original demand curve, right? So যখন সাবসিডির কারণে mom is getting more expensive, people are switching to fresh. When that happens, demand যখন বেড়ে যায়, okay? If this was your old equilibrium, P1, Q1, demand যখন ধাপ করে বেড়ে যাচ্ছে, what is happening? You are being faced with excess demand. Excess demand money, there's this upward pressure on prices, okay? So that's what I'm saying. Whenever there's this change in demand like this, there's this increase in demand, it creates this, and no change is happening to the supply curve, it creates this upward pressure on prices. On the other hand, let me draw another scenario. Subsidy karone, what did we see? That supply o kintu bede jacche. Tar mane originally the price was here, right? So এখন যেটা হচ্ছে, because of this increase in supply, so S1, S2, তখন there's this downward pressure in prices, okay? So downward pressure. So basically, whenever there's this increase in supply, right, there is excess supply, and যখনই excess supply হয়, basically what is happening? Retailers have a lot of this good piling up, inventories are piling up, they want to get rid of it. So that is why there's this downward pressure on prices. So এখানে যেটা হচ্ছে যে because of this increase in demand, this creates an upward pressure on prices. At the same time, because of this increase in supply, because there's this excess supply being created, there is this downward pressure on prices. So basically, there's here prices being pushed up, here prices being pushed down. So when these two changes are the same, basically change in demand is equal to change in supply, when that magnitude, when that is the same, তখন একটা প্রাইস বাড়াতে চেষ্টা করছে, আরেকটা প্রাইসকে পুশ ডাউন করছে. So they cancel each other out, and that is why price ultimately remains unchanged. So step 2 and 3 তে I've just explained that. So both demand and supply shift by the same degree, and so the price remains unchanged at P1, and new equilibrium তখন হয় at Q2. Okay? So that ends our discussion for what's happening with this double shift, when actually the shift is happening for the same amount. But you know what? Is it always true that এরকম হবে, price will be unchanged? Not at all. So that's what I've summarized here, যে how price is affected depends on which shift is bigger. Okay? So এমন একটা scenario যদি হয় যে তোমার supply shift is greater than your demand shift, তখন essentially there's going to be this excess supply, So it's going to push the prices down. On the other hand, if the demand shift is greater in magnitude, it's bigger than the supply shift, তখন there's excess demand is going to be dominating. So তখন it will actually pull the prices up. So here we had a unique case where the supply shift was equal to the demand shift. They changed by the same amount, which is why the price remained unchanged. All right, guys, so with that, we finished this whole lecture series on the different applications of demand and supply. And you are going to get to practice this quite a bit when it comes to the quizzes and the problem sets. All right, guys, I shall see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.